All right, thank you everyone. It's a real pleasure today to be doing a panel on quantum workforce. As you can see, we've got a very large panel and we also have one apology. Chris Ferry had hoped to be here, but yesterday he was trying to remove a tree from his property that came down in the storm and the tree instead removed Chris. So he will get well soon, but he does send his apologies. All right, because we've got such a large panel, I'm going to ask each panellist to introduce themselves in a minute or less, and I will be timing. Jen, can we start with you, please? I haven't started the minute yet, you're fine. Bit closer, bit closer. Yeah. I know.
I'm a professor of physics at Queensland University of Technology and also deputy dean of the Faculty of Science there. I do teaching of first year physics. I'm also a researcher. I work with equipment that is featured in that poster there. I'm a condensed matter specialist doing scanning probe microscopy mostly. I'm also, as part of my deputy dean role, in charge of work integrated learning in the faculty and also diversity and inclusion. And finally, the other thing that might be relevant is that I'm chair of the National Committee for Physics at the Australian Academy of Science.
Brilliant, thank you, Jen. Rob, over to you.
There we go. Hi, my name's Rob Sang. I'm a professor of physics. I'm at the University of Southern Queensland and I'm the Pro Vice Chancellor for Research, Development and Commercialisation. For my sins, I am an experimental quantum physicist and worked for years looking at how electrons move around atoms and molecules, determining their properties. More recently, I've been at the University of Southern Queensland for about a year and a half, and we've just developed up a new cryostatic facility for testing new devices, in particular what's been discussed in here, and looking and trying to build, I guess, a new ecosystem. So a facility that industry can use, but we can also use for training. Brilliant,
thank you. Ben.
Hello, I am nothing to do with quantum and I feel really out of my depth. My name is Ben Fenby. I am a business manager at TAFE and I manage a large faculty from electrical, electronics, autonomous technologies, instrumentation, and I think we've got a part to play in this workforce. So I've been invited today to talk about what we're doing, what we can do, and where that's going. So thank you for having me.
Right, thank you, Ben. And Nick?
Testing, great. Hi everyone, I'm Nick Fenton from the Department of Education. I manage a small but very mighty STEM special projects team. And prior to that, I was actually a deputy principal not very far away from here at New Farm State School for a while. Also taught all across Queensland and all over South Korea as well. So I don't have a quantum hat. My science degree was in fisheries, absolutely loved it, and great to be back in the STEM space.
Right, great. And Dylan.
Hi, I'm Dylan. I've been with PsiQuantum for about eight years now. So you just heard me talk. I'm the principal scientist there, but an experimental physicist by training. And 10 years ago, I finished my PhD here in Brisbane. So yeah, that's my intro.
All right, thank you everyone. So the panel today is on building a quantum workforce in Queensland. So I'm going to kick things off by first we'll have one topic we'll spread around and then I'm going to ask you a little provocative question. But the first topic is, building the talent pipeline. How do we make these pathways that go from school to vocational and higher education? And as you can see on the panel, we have both push and pull. We have the people who are in charge of training the next generation, and we have people in the panel who are in charge of employing the next generation. So we're going to get very different viewpoints. So I thought, Ben, I might start with you and Nick.
Yeah, so TAFE Queensland has a huge reach, and we've established a program called a VETIS program, a Vet in Schools pathway. People that have children in high school might be familiar with this. So we've got over 400 schools across South East Queensland and across Queensland where we're currently delivering a Cert 2 in a range of qualifications from building, electrical, refrigeration, and now we're getting into cybersecurity and autonomous technologies. We are now actually going to go a little bit further, and we're looking at the next 150 years. So TAFE Queensland's been around for 140 years, and we're looking at the next 150. And the biggest, conversation we're having is currently Year 6 students will be in the workforce in 2032. So that's now our target audience, because by the time they get to high school and they're choosing their electives to go to university or that pathway, they are unaware of things like this. And these projects are coming online the same time as the Olympics. So we want to now go into schools, and you spoke about STEM. A big initiative of mine, and what we're doing at TAFE Queensland is to get more females into this area, especially from that Year 7, Year 6 mark, where they're already starting to grow some interest. And then we're funneling those students into other pathways, such as Cert 3s in actual trade qualifications, so traditional trades. And I just was gobsmacked by the last panel talking about the investment in Queensland. So talk about my campus at Eagle Farm. It's a 47 or just under a $48 million investment from the federal and state governments in advanced manufacturing. So we're creating pathways to get more of that tech here. And it's up to me and our team to deliver these quals. So we're now funneling students into applied tech diplomas, and next year we're launching associate and bachelor degrees in applied tech to go from a Cert 2 all the way through to the higher end in the one location, specifically targeting cybersecurity and advanced manufacturing. So I think we've got a lot of work to do in this space when it gets to the pathways, but we're doing a significant amount there. And by having these conversations, we can go back and go, hey, let's maybe shift our focus towards this thing coming online, which is incredible.
All right, thank you, Ben. Nick, Ben talked there about the pipeline from schools. That's really your patch. So,
First, I'm just going to point out that the department is very big, and I'm focused on STEM special projects. So it's mainly about engagement. Our engagement with stakeholders in the industry has been, I think Dylan pointed out before, the word quantum is a scary thing, but our engagement with the stakeholders is about STEM skills. So that message continues through things like quantum teaching resources that will be developed, particularly around the Australian curriculum, technologies and science learning areas. So that would help not just some students, but actually all students, because Queensland students do study those learning areas from K to 10, or from prep to 10. Additionally, we'd be looking at expanding some of our programs that we currently have. So next year, and I'll probably touch a bit more about this, but we'll be rolling out a quantum challenge and also a quantum camp for students as well. So really focused on engagement opportunities. And based on our current projects that we have for students, we do make sure that all of our regions are touched by our programs, and we get all those students to the best of our ability involved.
thank you very much, Nick. All right, Jen and Rob, as the representatives of the universities on the panel, do you have any comments on that talent pipeline pathway?
Great. Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Nick, my kids actually went to New Farm State School, and they learned about Bose-Einstein condensates as a state of matter. So I do have to say there's quantum embedded
Leaving
in the
school?
curriculum. It is. I think there's really important work for universities to do to support our school system in getting this information in front of kids. And I think we do that through our partnerships. We do that through engagement with kids at a younger level. We do a lot of high school engagement as well. We offer the opportunity for Year 11 students during their summer break to actually take one of our classes during the summer for credit. And that's a really nice way for them to get used to a university environment, get exposed to a bit of curriculum, and to see whether it's a good fit. And we've got a science class in there, we've got an information technology class, we've got engineering. We're also working really closely with TAFE to make sure that people who have a diploma also have the opportunity, if they want, to convert that into some advanced standing into an undergraduate degree. So I think we really need to look at the continuum and the way the ecosystem is working in tandem to create these opportunities for students and for upskilling of the teachers at all levels. Rob?
Thanks. I'll be honest, I'm a little bit worried at the moment, Andrew, in particular, if I look at pipeline of students studying physics, mathematics in school at the moment, it's continuous decline. It's been declining for 15 years. Eric spoke about this briefly before. We do tend to focus a lot on school leavers, but to be honest, I think most of the workforce, or at least in terms of the increase of the workforce, will actually be non-school leavers. In fact, we have evidence. We've got some people in here that I know Sean up the back of there, who was a patent lawyer. He's actually now doing a PhD in physics. So, but we're going to see more and more people like this, and this is why TAFE is really important in making sure we get uniformity around how we actually look at credentials and allow people to be able to study. It's thinking about, I mean, at UniSQ, 80% of the people that come and study there are actually non-school leavers. So if we're going to build workforce capacity, this is one area that we have to look at really closely. I was in Canberra last week, and there was at a talk at the Australian Academy of Sciences, and the president there gave a scary figure about engineers. That is that in terms of employing an engineer in Australia now, 50% of them come from overseas. So if you really want to cut off immigration, just think about the context of what's going to happen in Australia in terms of industries like this if we cannot access that workforce. So probably the message I would say to anyone in here, particularly those school kids at the moment or they've got relatives, tell them to study math.
All right, thank you, Rob. And then Dylan, as someone who's employing people at the other end of the pipeline, are you spotting any gaps, or is there something you'd like to see us do that we're not doing?
Yeah, so I just want to say that like PsiQuantum in Australia, we haven't been here for that long, but I have had the pleasure of visiting a bunch of other tech startups in Australia. And a reoccurring theme is like, how do we do recruitment? And what I've heard from every company that I've spoken to, both successful and starting, is that that's difficult. However, the counterpoint to that is that they find good people, maybe not in the exact lane that you're looking for, bring them onboard them for 6 to 9 months, and then it's fantastic. And so I think there are two things to draw from that. I think we're going to be in a similar journey as we grow from the 20-odd people we are today to the 100-odd people we plan to be soon, and then to 400. We're going to be in that journey. But I think I have hope that the engineers that we have here are good enough, they're capable enough, and I think we will have a kind of a path as we pursue that. And so I think that's just a tip point that I've been hearing from other tech companies like here in Australia. So I think the ingredients are there, but I think as we've heard here, I think we can do more to kind of get that going.
All right, thank you, Dylan. Nick, in your reply earlier, you mentioned curriculum innovation. Do you want to just expand on that a little bit?
So currently we're looking we've got a partnership with the CSIRO to develop curriculum resources. The Minister this year also introduced the Queensland Virtual Academy, which allows for students, wherever you are, to study whatever you want by an expert teacher. So it really opens up that opportunity to children all over Queensland. And additional to that, there's also the Queensland Virtual STEM Academy as well, which has been running for many years from the Queensland Academy for Science, Maths and Technologies, and they'll also be working with us to develop resources for teachers and for students as well.
Right, thank you. And Ben, in your reply, you mentioned already some of the stuff that you're doing in this space. If I give you a minute, can you expand a little bit more?
Yes, so before starting at TAFE, I was in the oil and gas industry for 10 years in the North Sea and a lot of parts in Australia. And when I was recruiting, the biggest thing that I found the challenge of was trying to find someone that was qualified in being a fitter and someone that was an electrical and instrumentation technician to then operate and maintain large gas plants. So we've got a partnership with, part of our future skills partnership with BHP and BMA and Komatsu, and they've come to us with the same challenges now, which is more traditional trades, but it comes into this world as well. So what we've done is we've created a high-level apprenticeship. So students that do a traditional trade such as fitting or electrical, and what we're doing on top of that is a year of applied tech. So bringing that will integrated learning, we're hugely going, what do you need to do to problem solve on site? So it's still an apprenticeship, but they walk out with a diploma of applied tech, and it's 18 units we've come up with across networking, process control, cybersecurity, and advanced manufacturing, and it's gone off like a bang. So we're trying to capture what the current workforce is and then promote this as something that's going into the future.
Excellent. All right. So, Jen and Rob, I've just heard the gauntlet laid down by the schools and TAFE sector who are doing a lot of innovation in the curriculum space. What do you think universities can do that they're not? And I'm going to say micro-credentials.
Well, it's a good question, Andrew. In fact, this year I spent a lot of time with staff in the school working around a new Bachelor of Science. So what does a new Bachelor of Science mean to current students? And the reality is it's a couple of things. It's obviously a degree where you can get great transferable skills. You can work in the STEM sector pretty well around that. But it's also a pathway to being a scientist. And it's important that we actually recognise that. I think for me, the most important thing is to really have modernised what the majors were, but also making sure that they can actually combine things that they might want to do. So, for example, we have a new space technology major. That locks into, obviously, we have a big research program, a trailblazer called iLaunch, where we're building rockets and satellites to launch, and so we need a workforce around that. But outside the Bachelor of Science, the other thing I've been looking at, particularly in our computing area, so that used to be in my area as well, is going beyond AI. What is beyond AI? And of course, it's quantum. And in fact, half of the computing staff in my school now are actually moving to developing research programs around quantum AI. So that's the big areas that we're trying to change, making sure that we have curriculum that is relevant to where the sectors are actually moving, but also something that people want to do. And they're the big things. Yeah.
I would say we're very similar. We've recently modernized our Bachelor of Science, and that's meant to move us in a direction where we're really focusing on fundamentals, while at the same time creating balance through work-integrated learning so that students know how to apply those skills, but through a range of other skills, including the use of AI, including the integration of First Nations perspectives, to ensure that we are training contemporary scientists that are ready to be part of a diverse workforce that is reflective of this nation. And I think we're also looking, as Andrew prompted us to talk about, we're also looking at the way we deliver our curriculum. In particular, we do have sort of boot camp opportunities. We're looking at online opportunities as a way to reach students who are not able to join us on campus. And that's a difficult translation for experimental subjects. It's a very easy one, though, in something like information technology. And so we're having a great deal of success there in reaching student populations that are interested in our way of teaching that discipline and aren't able to join us on campus in Brisbane. So I think these kinds of combinations of things will help us reach the learners that are really motivated to move into this space, wherever they are.
Thank you, Jen. All right, so Dylan, you've heard about this innovation in the curriculum space. What role do you think industry will play in bridging these education and workforce gaps?
Yeah, I think that we have a role to play in telling people what we need. So I think that's I think the first thing that we can do a better job at kind of doing is just beating down that 80% of our staff are engineers, a huge slew of technicians, all the way up to bachelor, master's, PhD, and the triangle is kind of like that. And I think the roles like lab technicians, equipment, all of those skills, we'll need them as well. Whether it's for photonics, the modality that we're pursuing, or other particular types of quantum computing systems will be the same. And I think our role is to provide a pool and kind of jobs and maturing as an industry that there's a language that makes sense. It's are we hiring this person, and that's what we need. So I'm really excited to continue to work with TAFE and identify, an electrical engineer or a technician, what do we need? And I think those conversations will be fantastic. But I think that's our role, I think, here is to create that opportunity, but to push what we need.
All right, and then to the rest of the panel in response to that, is there something you'd like to see from industry that you're not yet seeing or that would be really helpful to you?
We had QSIF come out every term to give a talk to our Cert 2 students to start that pipeline now so they know to work towards something. I think you should celebrate your success. So, Denny and I were talking about something that you've recently completed, some of us a building and had cryogenics, and promote that because the students are looking for a pathway. Most importantly, looking for money. So we try and promote a job outcome. Well, what is that job outcome? And you go, hey, we've just completed this. This is what it looks like. Celebrate that because that gives them a direct line to go, that's an employer that I could call, and then that can funnel into more projects into the future.
Brilliant. And Nick, as you mentioned earlier, you're from a very large organisation. It covers every student in Queensland. There must be, 600,000 or something?
Yeah, it's I think it's 1,265 state schools.
Holy
I have to update the register I run the Premier's Coding Challenge, so I have to update that every year that we add a few more schools.
Well, we are the only decentralised state in the Federation. More than half the population's outside the southeast corner. So a really important question, I think, for us to reflect upon is how do we ensure access and equity across the state, both in terms of geography and also STEM is traditionally very gender imbalanced. That's a hard one to start. Who will I throw that to? Ben, over to you.
Yes. Okay. Cool. We're doing a lot in this space. So we realised that, and I was talking to Ray before from QT. And we're talking about there's this one pool that we're all trying to recruit from. There's just one pool. That's why we're trying to go. How do we target more earlier audiences to then, when they're at the age of working, they've got something to go into. A big thing that we're looking at is women returning back to the work after having children. Well, what is that pathway and how do we get more flexible delivery? We are now doing virtual remote delivery, so students don't have to travel to Southeast Queensland for longer periods of block delivery. It's very hard because you're trying to have that interaction, and online is challenging that way, but we're just trying to use every model depending on the student. That's what we're trying to hit because we realise that our footprint in Queensland is huge and we can't just have a single mind. We have to explore every opportunity now. Yeah.
Jen or Rob, do you want to say something on behalf of the unis?
I'll just say something quickly. I just want to say that for me, this is a really important issue. And in fact, when we redesigned our Bachelor of Science, almost nearly all of the majors can be done online. And it's because we know about, our typical clients or customers or students, if you want to put it that way, come from the regional areas, and it's really incumbent on us to do this because people have to remember that 1/3 of the population lives in regional Australia, but yet 2/3 of the economy is actually driven from regional Australia. So it's really important that we actually contribute to that education in there. So for us, it was really about thinking about how can we cleverly design this. Obviously, there's a history of UniSQ providing distance education, so that was a really positive part for us. But the second part is actually getting out there so people actually know what we actually do as well and engaging with the population around that. And so quite often we will do trips, regional trips. And in fact, excuse me, iLaunch recently just created, there's actually a mobile mission station. It's on a huge semi-trailer, and it goes out to schools in southern Queensland, all around Queensland, into remote areas, promoting that sort of thing.
Right.
So there's a number of ways, but that's what we're trying to do.
Jen?
Thanks. I mean, Rob, those are great initiatives. I think, it's a tricky question to the question of increasing participation across historically excluded demographics in particular is, I think we need a bit of a culture shift in workplaces. We need role models. We know all of these things we need. One of the motivations that we had at QUT for embedding Indigenous perspectives in our curriculum was, you know, out of the many, many benefits of doing this for all of our students, it really helps First Nations Australians see themselves as part of the scientific population. And I think it's these kinds of things that we really need to work on. And we really do need to focus on the well-roundedness of being a scientist, the creativity. In all of these disciplines, there's so many benefits to the individual practitioner, and to be able to better articulate those to the people that historically haven't seen themselves as part of those discipline populations. So there's no, I think, easy solution, but I think it's definitely a goal worth working towards.
All right, brilliant. We have about 3 minutes left, and then I'm going to throw open to the audience for questions. So in the last 3 minutes, that gives you about 30 seconds each. If you could wave a magic wand and change one thing in this space, what would that thing be? Start with Dylan.
I'd wake up 10 years from now. And I think the reason for that is we'd be out of this chicken and egg problem of having a workforce defined and having the job supply, but we're not there. Like, I think we as an organization have to drag the quantum computer into existence, kicking and screaming, and I think we'll have to do the same thing with the workforce. And I'm excited to tackle that problem, but that's not where we are, and I think we all got to work together to make that happen. And so my wish was that we're there. We're not, and I'm just really excited to play our part in that.
Thank you, Dylan. Nick?
Wouldn't change a thing. What a time to live, really. Like, if Queensland can have the first quantum computer, if we can inspire children to utilise this technology, be the first, I think it's absolutely amazing. And the fact that my small team gets an opportunity to create, challenges and camps for students around this for the first time, I'm just so happy. It's great.
Nick, just as the son of 2 primary school teachers, you wouldn't want to double the wages of teachers?
I'll leave that to other people.
All right. Ben?
I would link what you're currently doing to the current workforce, because there's a disconnect in what you're currently doing for bread and butter people that are technicians or that are studying towards this. And this is just for me, when I first come to know about QSIF is, well, what are you currently doing? And someone mentioned data factories. That's a great link, because no one thinks about that as a job, but it's there and it could move towards things.
Right, thank you, Ben. Rob?
I wished I had invested in PsiQuantum 10 years ago, so that probably would have been one thing. But look, to me, I think the big one in an altruistic sense would have been, I think that people accept the culture that failure is okay when you're trying to start up a business, right? And it's one of the big issues that we have here in terms of getting startups. Obviously, one is finance, getting money, and hopefully that will change. There was some discussion about the CERD, about superannuation companies changing the law so that they can actually invest. That would be a great start, because that creates a different sort of ecosystem that will really allow this to flourish here.
All right, thank you. And last but certainly not least, Jen.
Thanks, Andrew. And you did say magic wand, so this is really magical thinking. We've heard some genuine real-life solutions that are moving us towards this space, but I think we would benefit so much from genuine equity of opportunity for anyone that wants to be involved in these kinds of advanced technologies, these kinds of quantum careers, regardless of socioeconomic status, of regional or remote, regardless, all genders, all language backgrounds, cultural backgrounds. I think if we could really tap into that full diversity of the talent pipeline we have in this state, that would be magical.
What an awesome note to finish on. All right, we've got 4 minutes left, so I'm going to throw open to the audience for questions. Sean, can someone get a microphone up to Sean?
So I went back to school because I wanted to find out how a quantum computer works. As soon as I found out that Brisbane was going to get built in Boston, you guys built it there. My question, I have 2 of them. First of all, in the last 4 months, you guys haven't mentioned what's the Brisbane facility. You mentioned that the first quantum computer is being built in Chicago every other day. And then, so I'm wondering if you could probably come back to Brisbane. And then the second question I have is, all your competitors
Yeah, so maybe I'll touch on the Chicago one. So in Chicago, we're going to build something smaller and sooner there. So like a normal company, we're going to build a small thing, and we're going to build a bigger thing, and then we're going to build the real thing. And so the plan in Chicago is to build one of those intermediate systems there. So that's our plan there. And our plan to build the first one here in Brisbane remains unchanged. So that remains the plan. On patents, I can't comment on that. I filed one myself, so that's the only one that I can speak of. But I think we continue to work hard on that. So that's what I can say there.
All right, thank you. Another question, but this time not an easy one like Dylan just got. Tyler.
All right, this is the back to the chicken and the egg kind of idea. So thinking now about the chicken, so to speak, which would be, you've given us a lot of examples of enticements for the students and sort of getting them interested and excited about science. But one of the things I often hear is that we need to sort of demonstrate to their parents that the jobs are out there in these areas. And so I was wondering if the panels can maybe give their thoughts on sort of engaging with the parents of the students who are thinking about doing science.
All right, who in the panel wants to take that? Ben?
Yeah, but perhaps I'll give one example of my own kids, and I'm a parent. And I think the only thing that I would say on the equity piece, my boss is a female, and we have a lot of female seniors within our company. So just touching on that point. But I think the real thing is like an example, like a picture of a thing being built, and they can look at it. And I think just making it more real, I think either that's a video or an interview or pointing at it and touching it. I think if the parents can understand that building things in Australia, building technologies in Australia are already here, and people can be proud of the achievements we already have, I think that to me is like really enabling. Just not both the role models for Korea, but also that things are being built here today, and that's something that Australia can do.
Yeah, we do this a lot. We run 3-day trade tasters where students come into, we got over 60 campuses around the state. So talking about what we're doing in that area, we're putting trade tasters out there. Students will try maybe up to 6 trades over 3 days with their parents. And the biggest conversation is, well, what do I want my child to do? And I'm not even talking or putting quantum out there. I'm just going, let's get a trade of electrical or refrigeration or instrumentation and control or some security tech, because they're the fundamental trade to go in to build these facilities. I'm talking about more green projects is what's coming. That's what we're doing in this space, and we do probably 2 every month across every campus. So there's a lot of that, but I'm just pushing traditional trades that we can hit straight away, that there's an immediate job outcome.
Yeah, here we are. I've had this conversation many times with, in fact, Dylan, I had this conversation with your parents once when you were in first year. So I taught Dylan through undergraduate, and it's really interesting. I think part of it comes around uncertainty, right? Because if you do a more generic degree, then the pathway is a little bit less certain. But it doesn't mean the skill sets that you have aren't fantastic skill sets, and it actually broadens your opportunity rather than narrows it. So, if you decide, let's say, you do want to become a dentist, well, it's pretty hard for a dentist to then go into a lab and study, then suddenly do quantum physics. It's pretty darn hard. They have to retrain again and so forth. So, yes, it's a clear pathway to become a dentist, but there aren't a heck of a lot of other options that you could do once you've done that. So I think it's really important when we're actually talking to parents about the jobs, how things are changing for people, how many different jobs people will have. Even myself, even though I'm still, I guess I practice science as more of a hobby these days rather than as an actual thing. But, a lot of the skill sets I do, most of the time I'm looking at budgets and things like that. So I was really lucky that I was trained, in a quantitative science that allows me to look at data and think about things in quite a deep way and plan around that. So I think that's the message to point out, that although it may not be a completely certain pathway in terms of employment, there are a lot of opportunities.
All right, that's bringing us to time. I can see there's more questions, but I will ask you to hold those over until the networking session at the end of today. And Rob, although you said you do mostly budgets, I'll just tell everybody that 6 hours ago, Rob found out he got a discovery project from the Australian Research Council today. So that's great news as well. And while you're applauding, please join me in thanking all the members of the panel for a really great session. Thank you very much.